Identity is one of those words that causes us to think, I'm not really sure what I know about it. Is identity important to you? Absolutely. Is it important to me? Absolutely. Do you know who you are? Well, you might have a name, you have an address, you have a job, you have a calling, but what happens when you lose that job? When you lose the reason for which you have been known? Where does your identity lie? What is it all about? Hi, I'm Mike Sherbino, and all this week on The Perspective, we're going to be talking about identity. I have a great guest that I'm going to introduce in a few moments who's going to be doing our Bible teaching. She's also going to be sharing about a book that she has written. It's called Found. It's all about identity, who we are when no one's looking, who we are when everything has been stripped away. You know, with many of the big games like the Super Bowl in the rearview mirror, and we have all these famous stars that are on stage, they're known so well, they're on everybody's social media feed. What happens when the lights go down, when the crowd goes away? Who are they? Well, maybe you and I have never had to worry about that, but still we struggle with the same thing. I want you to watch with me a trailer on discovering your identity.
Do you ever have questions in your life about who you are? Maybe you're in an identity crisis. We've all been there. It's part of the human experience. Do I have value? Do I have worth? What is my purpose in life? Well, I believe this is a very significant question to be answered. And I've written a book called Found. My name's Lorie Hartshorn, and I want to invite you on a journey of discovering your true identity. I want to lead you not only through my book, but through an 8-part video series where you can even gather with others and learn and discuss together about the truth of our identity, the beauty of it, and the freedom that we find when we are connected to Jesus. See, I believe that we lost our identity back in the beginning in the garden, and I want to unpack for you how Jesus, he restores it all. You can find your true identity in him. So why don't you come with me on this journey of discovering your true identity, your value and worth, and let's grow and learn together. Found. You can know that what was lost, it's all been found in Jesus.
Well, I'm excited today to have Lorie Hartshorn with us. And many of you know Lorie because she's a TV personality, has hosted 700 Club Canada for many years. But along with doing all of those amazing things, she is an author, international speaker. Lorie, the list goes on and on. I just want to welcome you to the program.
Thanks, Mike. It actually feels like it's home week for me to come back here.
In the studio, but all of the accolades, you're also a brand new grandmother, so congratulations.
Thank you. Number 5. Can you believe it?
Number 5.
My goodness.
Listen, you're too young to have 5 grandkids,
Thank you.
okay?
Let's just keep it that way.
I want to build up your identity right now, okay? But we go way back, many, many years. You and your husband, Dean, you weren't married yet at that point, but we all worked at a place called Elam Lodge in Peterborough.
That's right.
And that was a defining experience as well for a lot of us. A lot of fun, a lot of good laughs. And
I worked in the snackery. I scooped a lot of ice cream.
That's
what I remember. Yeah.
Okay. And we did water ski shows and different things like that. Okay, so let's leave all of that because that's kind of pretty passé for now. But we'll come back to it in a few moments. You've written an amazing book. It's called Found, Discovering Your True Identity. And I've been so enjoying the book.
Good.
And I can say that honestly.
Good.
And the reason I say that is because we can flip through many books on identity and, or books on how do I be happy? How can I have joy?
Right.
Interesting. All those things are linked to the book.
Yeah.
And you've unpacked some things that are so helpful for people. Take me back and tell me, what was your motivation? What prompted you to write on identity?
Well, Mike, I think it's the age-old question of who am I? Do I have value and worth? And if we're all honest, as you've already said in the program here, we can attach our value and worth to the things that we do. And what happens when those things that we do, or some of those identity markers, how we would define ourselves, what happens when those things are taken away? Then who are we? And I've lived a few years of my life like you. And so I know the journey of being defined by maybe the things I've done, right? the different accomplishments, the different achievements, the different titles behind my name, what happens when they're gone? Then who is Lorie? And I share very honestly in my book
You
about
do. Very
about my
honestly.
own struggles and years of identity and asking this question, do I have value and worth? And then I discovered, obviously through many years of pastoring, discipling people, interviewing people on TV, that we are all asking this question. And it is a question of identity. Do I find value and worth? What am I attaching my value and worth to? And if you attach your value and worth to the wrong things, you're going to be left very empty. And that's how most of the world lives.
But we struggle with all of that. What
Mm.
you say is absolutely true. But just even as I referenced in the beginning of the program, the Super Bowl weekends, that's in the rearview mirror. And all the things that were leading up to that, and kind of wondering who's going to be up in the box with Taylor Swift,
Right.
this
Yeah,
time.
yeah.
Uh, and all of those interesting facets. We've had the Grammys, the Emmys, and now we've got to wait another 12 months, thank goodness. I wish it was 14 or 15.
Yep.
But suddenly these people are up and they have their identity.
Mm.
People are looking at them. They're on the red carpet.
Mm-hmm.
I don't get that kind of treatment.
Yeah.
You don't.
Yeah.
And we just live normal lives, but we still struggle in the same way.
Mm-hmm.
Why is it? Why are we so almost, are we phony? Are we fake? Or are
Well,
we pretending?
I illustrate this in a way in my book that I liken it to mirrors, that we tend to look in the wrong mirror. You always look into the mirror to say, well, how do I look? Who am I? How am I coming across? Like in fact, in this day and age, I would say social media and many of these things are like mirrors to us. And when you look in the wrong mirror, if you look in a distorted mirror, like Niagara Falls, just down the road here.
Yeah.
I took my grandchild to that house of mirrors.
House of mirrors.
It's like a house of horrors,
Oh, man.
and you go in there and you're
No, that's
upside,
not me. That's not me.
right? And she was kind of freaked out, going like, her face was wide, or she was really tall and skinny, because she was looking in distorted mirrors. And if you look in a distorted mirror, you're going to get a distorted view of yourself. I watched Taylor Swift's documentary of her life recently. I found it quite fascinating. And she talks about identity, that she, from a very young age, went into this identity of achievement. And why that resonated with me, Mike, is because I tell in my own book my story of, as a little girl, maybe grade 2, sitting out on the lawn. I didn't know what was going on, but it was awards day.
Yes.
And,
I
I'm
remember reading that.
waiting for my name to be called. Like, maybe I'll win a prize, like I could hear people's names are being called. They're going up and getting this prize in my little grade 2 mind. And my name was never called. And I held on to a lie that day that, first of all, how can I get my name called? And maybe I'm not good enough.
Well, as a young kid myself, you get picked to play in the hockey team, even if it was out on the outdoor rinks.
Right.
Back in the day before there was climate change,
Yeah.
winter was actually cold.
Winter? Yeah.
And I remember that. And, the older guys they would be the captains.
Right.
And if you were near the bottom of the pile being picked,
Right.
you just felt like
You weren't worth it,
you
right?
weren't worth it.
You didn't have value and worth. And Taylor Swift, she's very honest about her story, that she just went into work, prove hard, try harder. This is a lot of my story. I'm just going to try harder and I'm going to do all this stuff. And maybe that'll get me, I'll be able to be defined by a person whose name is called, who has value and worth, who somebody sees and notices. And Taylor talks very honestly about that. You think she's worth like how many billions of dollars? And she
it's what her
discovered,
cat is worth that really
oh
bothers me.
oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
Over 90 million.
Oh no.
That's what it's valued at.
But she's honest to say, you can have all the money in the world, you can have all the accolades, your name can be called, and you still down inside of you cannot know that you're doing good enough, that you're enough. And for her to say that, I thought, this is the honesty of every human's experience. Am I loved? Do I have worth? Am I good enough? And these are all identity questions, because if we're being defined by the wrong things, the wrong mirrors, then we're going to get the wrong answer about ourselves.
In your book, you make a very interesting comment. You make several interesting comments, but you said this: we don't understand who we are and how God sees us. And we ultimately measure ourselves by the wrong standards.
Yeah.
I'd like you to unpack that for me.
Well, you have to go back to the beginning to get actually the answer to who you really are. And we know we're Bible teachers, Mike, right? you got to start in Genesis. If you want to start anywhere, you've got to start before this world was messed up. What was God's design? What was his intent for every human being? And we see it in the garden, this beautiful story of us being created as image bearers of God. And that idea of being an image bearer is like, I just had my 5th grandchild, right? I looked at what was the first thing I did was see, who does she look like? Oh, I see my son in her. Oh, right?
Yeah. No, you were looking to see if you could
if
see
I was
yourself.
reflecting, yeah, that's
come
true.
on.
That's true. But whose image does she reflect?
Hmm.
And this is who we were designed to be. We were designed to reflect God, to reflect his image, to bear his image in this world. That is our true design. And when we go back to the beginning and we discover we had beautiful intimacy with God, like he was right there. He was the perfect mirror. You can look in the perfect mirror and see a perfect reflection of who you were meant to be. Adam and Eve, why did they screw it up, Mike? Like they had the perfect mirror with them every day. They knew who they were to reflect. They knew who they were designed to be and reflect God's image. They were hanging out all the time. They were sharing in his purpose. They were
cool.
given authority over everything. This is the truth of who we really are. And what I unpack in my book is, even though we know the story took a bad turn, and all of that was lost, right? We're looking now in the broken mirrors. We're looking in wrong places. But Jesus says, it's all been found. Jesus comes to restore everything that was lost in the garden. You don't have to wait till heaven, which is like, I unpack that in my book a lot.
Well, hold on to that
It's
thought.
available now.
It's available now.
Yeah.
We're going to come right back in a moment. We want you to get a copy of this book, Found. And to the first 20 who write into their program, I'm going to send it to you free of charge. But even more important, are you struggling with your identity, what it means to know Jesus? Do you feel lost? I encourage you to call the 800 number that's there on your screen right now. Call that number. There are people to pray with you and to encourage you. And we're going to be right back in a moment with more from Lorie. We're here again with Lorie Hartshorn, who is the author of the recent book that just came out called Found, Discovering Your Identity, Who You Are. Lorie, let's just pick it right up where we left off. So many interesting things we're talking about. Chapter 3, you ask a question that's kind of unnerving. I mean, sometimes you just don't want to go there, right?
Yep.
As a reader, because it causes you to go deep. Caused me to ask the questions I don't want to ask. And here it was, who am I really? Who am I really? When did you figure out who you were?
I think I'm still figuring it out, to be honest. I think this is a journey really of your life, but at the core.
So you got to explain that, because if you've written a book on identity,
I know, there's no answer.
And you're trying to figure it out.
Yeah. I mean, at the core of who I am, and by the way, who you are too, Mike.
Okay.
You're not just, dad and grandpa and TV host and pastor and all the things that Mike does. You are a son of the Most High God. I'm a daughter of the Most High God. This is our eternal privilege to be part of a family with a good dad and to be welcomed into relationship with a good father. And to discover who we really are, we need to get close to the one who made us. And so I'm not sure, the uncomfortable question sometimes is, how far am I away from who I was actually designed to be? And I have this struggle with sin. The Bible talks about sin and how it became our defining moment. Like now that we're now separated from God because of the choice of Adam and Eve, we're now separated from the perfect mirror. We're defined by sinner, and it just comes with.
What does that mean? What does that mean?
It's actually just a word that sin is anything that separates us from God. It just doesn't reflect God's nature. Anything that doesn't reflect God's nature is sin. And if we're designed to be image bearers of his nature, then, when we're living separate from him, we are now sinner and in need of redemption. We need to find our true selves again. And I unpack in my book that you can't do that on your own. You can try to achieve it. We know the gospel story, the good news of the gospel, if it wasn't for the mercy of God to come after us and say, I'm going to tell you who you really are. And by the way, I'm not going to just shout it up here from heaven, but I'm going to come in the person of Jesus. I'm going to show you who you were meant to be. I'm going to deal with the problem of sin. And Jesus did deal with the problem of sin so that we wouldn't be defined by it anymore. And he goes to the cross and he dies and he rises again. And he says, I'm going to make you brand new if you'll accept my invitation into relationship. And so we're not defined by sinner anymore. We're actually defined by saint. I know that's a stretch, right?
Saint
Some
Lorie.
days to think of that way. But
So
in the eyes of God, we are pure and accepted by God. And he wants to give us everything that was available to Jesus. And this is where I feel a lot of us don't know. We maybe even have the idea as a Christian that we're loved and forgiven and yay, Jesus, you did that for us. But actually, we don't know all that's available to us, Mike. And I wrote the book because I found in my own life, and for many, they're living powerless Christian lives. And they don't actually, and I did not understand all that was available to me because of what Jesus has done for me.
So let's illustrate it
Yeah.
with your life.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
A couple things. You have adult children,
Yeah.
so you know what it's like to be a mother.
Yeah.
First question, did you ever feel like you flunked Parenting
Oh, my
101?
goodness. That was in my first book, which I keep telling my
Okay.
story of feeling like, and honestly, let's be real. Many of us define ourselves by parenting and
How
and
well our kids turn out.
right, how well our kids turn out. And I felt pretty good up until the teen years. Mike might have been able to write a book, yay me. And then people know much of our story, but my kids all chose to just run from God and make a lot of destructive choices in their life.
How did that impact your identity?
It was probably my biggest identity crisis because one of the main things that I wanted to be defined by was I was a good mom. And I'd
Oh,
sacrificed.
you're going to write a book on parenting.
I know, I will never write a book on parenting. I sacrificed a lot to hold on to that identity of good mom. And now I'm clearly not a good mom. And that was a huge identity crisis in my life, that if I measure my own value and how well I'm doing as a parent based on my kids' actions, pretty clearly I'm not doing very well as a parent when my kids are, involved in all the wrong things and destructive things. And that's where I had to go to the Lord and say, is this how I'm defined by myself as a mom? Do I have value and worth now that I'm failing as a mom? And the Lord really met me there. And my desire in the book, Mike, is I share my story, many people's stories in the book, because I feel that people will relate with people in the book to go, oh, me too. I used to define myself by being a good parent or maybe by the successes, but also the stories of I define myself by the trauma or the things that were done to me. Lots of stories like that.
Yeah.
And then but God, those two favorite words, but God. And now I define myself by belonging to Jesus, by actually being part of a family, that I am a daughter and I'm redeemed. And even if my kids screw up, I'm going to be okay.
So time is going to go too fast for this interview. Let's jump ahead to where Lorie is today.
Yeah.
You've just stepped down from anchoring a prominent Christian TV program. And did you stumble a little bit for a few weeks trying to figure out, okay, what's now and how you figure out your identity?
Yeah.
And you just written this book as well.
Well, never write a book, Mike, because it'll test you at the core of your message. So the core of my message is, discover the power of your true identity. Don't place your identity in other things, including things that you do and the titles you have. So for me, I loved my job as host of 700 Club Canada. I felt very secure in that place. I felt like it was a good reflection of the gifts that God had given me. But if I was defined by it, then I'm in trouble, because then you can't let go of it. And I clearly heard from the Lord it was time to let it go and to step into some new things. So the question is, and sure, the real struggle was, who will I be if I'm not the host of 700 Club Canada? Well, the answer is, I'm a daughter of the Most High God. And I'm going to be okay, even though there's sadness because I left my friends here at the studio and I left the rhythm of my life. So there is appropriate grieving when you change roles. But
that's good to hear.
The truth is, I'm not defined by it. It's just something that I did. And I'm going to keep serving Jesus in different roles and whatever he has for me, and actually hold loosely to those things. There's a lot of freedom in holding loosely to the things, the titles you're given or the roles you're given, because sometimes we hold on to things for our own comfort or security, and they don't actually allow us then to take greater risks to trust God. So I'm riding the wave right now, Mike. I'm stepping out into the water and going, okay, God, you gave me this message. Let's go. and I'm let go of some of the
Kind
security.
of be the surfer girl.
Yeah, surfer girl. That's it. That's it. That's a whole other story. But
That's another story.
Yeah.
Hey, you're listening to The Perspective. I'm Mike Sherbino. My special guest today has been Lorie Hartshorn. And all this week, Lorie is going to do the Bible teaching for us on finding our identity in Christ. I want to invite you to write to us. You can write to perspective.tv and say, I'd like to request a copy of Lorie's book. And for the first 20 people who write in each day, we're going to send you a free copy to encourage you in this search for identity.
For those of us who follow Jesus, we have a book. It isn't a theology book. It isn't a rule book. This book is a story. The story of God and humanity. A story Jesus said he was fulfilling. This book contains poems, riddles, letters, puzzling narratives, and new ideas. Yet, throughout it all, this book is full of the breath of God. For those of us who follow Jesus, this book is a treasure. This book is a tree of life. This book is a page turner. Turn the page with us.
In my new book and video series, Found, I share this powerful truth that will change your life if you believe it. Everything that was lost in the garden is found in Jesus. Well, what do I mean by that? Well, it starts with understanding what was lost and the impact of it on every single person. Imagine yourself in the Garden of Eden at the beginning of time on this earth, and each day you're walking and talking with God, and there's no shame, there's no struggle, there's only intimacy and purpose. You care about what God cares about, and He's actually put you in charge of everything, right? Amazing. This is what the first humans experienced. And this is God's design for every single one of us. According to Genesis 1, verse 26, we see our identity and purpose clearly in one sentence. Then God said, let us make mankind in our image, in our likeness, so that they may rule. So God created mankind in His own image. In the image of God, He created them, male and female. He created them. See, everyone is made in God's image or likeness and designed to reflect God in this world. To be an image or likeness of someone is, well, it's like looking in a mirror and seeing a reflection of them looking back at you. You were created to reflect God in this world, like a mirror image, and to share in His purposes for the world. But the story, it takes a turn for the worst when Satan enters the garden and deceives the first humans, and they believe his lie. They turn away from the perfect mirror they were made to reflect, and they run to other mirrors. Mirrors like success, money, achievement, beauty, or even failure, shame, and trauma. See, all these mirrors give a distorted view of yourself. The search for identity and purpose has been going on ever since. We lost our intimacy with God. We lost our purpose in sharing in His work, and we gave our authority over to Satan. So much was lost. But enter Jesus. See, Jesus came to restore what was lost. Jesus came to be your mirror and to show us what it looks like to reflect Him in this world. He defeats sin and Satan by going to the cross, rising from the dead, and then He restores everything back to us. 2 Corinthians 5:17 says it like this. This means that anyone who belongs to Christ has become a new person. The old life is gone, a new life has begun. See, everything that was lost in the garden, our identity, our intimacy with God, our purpose, and our authority, well, it's all restored to us through the work of Jesus. What was lost has been found in Jesus. You and I, we're restored to our image bearer status. We're given a brand new nature. We're brought into an intimate, loving relationship with God, just like it was in the garden. When we can reflect God in this world, once again, we find our true selves. And 2 Corinthians 5:20 tells us that our purpose has been restored. We are therefore Christ's ambassadors, as though God were making his appeal through us. You see, as God's ambassadors, we represent him in this world. We are restored to image bearer once again. We're free to reflect God wherever we go and whatever we do. This is who you and I really are meant to be. And living in light of this truth will enable you to be the person God designed you to be. See, Jesus, he came to show us who God is and to show us who we were meant to be. He was the perfect reflection of God, and he's the perfect mirror that shows us who we really are. We don't need to live defeated lives, missing out on all God has for us. We can live loved and we can live free because that's who we really are. And this is the story I found. When you know who you really are and all that's available to you, you live your life with purpose, with joy, and with great meaning. What was lost in the garden? It is found in Jesus. Don't look to any other mirror but Jesus. And then go live your life reflecting him to everyone around you, because everything that was lost in that garden, it is truly found in Jesus.
When I was about 10 years old, I went to my older sister's college graduation. It was a long event. I got very tired, and I said to my dad, I'm going to go back to the car and lie down. And he said, okay. And so I did that, and I fell asleep. They came to find me, and they couldn't see me. They didn't look into the back door of the car to see that I was stretched out on the seat. They came within 15 feet of the car, and they couldn't see me anywhere, and they thought I was lost. They looked all over the campus of Queen's University. Finally, they came back, and they found me. I woke up, I was sitting up, and wondering where was everybody anyways. Here's the truth of that story. I was lost and didn't know it, and they were looking for me. That's the heartbeat of the gospel of Jesus Christ. We're lost people, lost looking for identity, trying to find meaning for life, and we have a Savior who's made it possible for us to find our way home. That's the Lord Jesus, when he gave his life on the cross for you and for me. Can I invite you today to reach out to him and just say, Jesus, I want to be found by you. I want to be part of your family. Open up your heart and just say, Lord, today I'm asking you to be my Savior, to be my Lord. If we can help you in that decision, call us right now at 855-910-6297. There's people there to pray with you.